Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We've got the old Oliver 550 gasser here, kind of stripped down of all the parts that we want to rob from it for the Oliver 550 diesel. So what we're going to do now, this is still going to be a okay machine when we're done. We're going to go over it from end to end. We're going to change all the fluids. We're going to service it up. We're going to fix up any little other kind of detail-y things that we could find, and then we'll figure out what to do with it later. First thing we're going to deal with is the hydraulics. One thing I never checked until just now is the 3-point hitch, and I pulled the quadrant up and nothing happened. It doesn't lift, but I'll show you what I found. Well, there's no oil in it. That could be a problem. So what the problem is this rancid old hose here. It is, well, it leaks, right? This thing at one point had a loader on it, and they didn't use, my 550 diesel's got an Oliver remote valve on it that ran the loader. On this thing, they just had this block on that was kind of acting as a bypass, if I'm explaining it correctly. And what they would do is chain this down. You chain the 3-point hitch down, and then you use this, and that would operate the loader up and down. So what we're going to do is take all this crap off of here and just put a couple of plugs in it, fill it up with oil, and see if it works. I'm changing all the fluids in it anyway, so this is an easy start. It's empty, so we just got to put some in. And look, I think I found the leak. Yeah, oopsie. Unbelievable. That's all right. We'll get her fixed up. For the hydraulic system, we're using this, TDH oil, transmission diff hydraulic oil. It's just kind of universal tractor fluid. We got this all plugged off, so I'm going to go ahead. On these things, the hydraulic oil is separate from the gear oil. It just stays up in here. So we're going to fill this thing up. I kind of think it takes about 6 quarts. So anyway, we're putting in 3.5 quarts here. 3.5, yeah. And we'll see what happens. See if we get anything on the dip-a-stick. Well, it turns out I'm full of it. Once I took this block off, I realized that this loader that was on this thing actually had its own hydraulic control valve. This is the, I guess the bottom one is the power going out to it, and the top one is the return. So it would have had a spool valve or a couple if it was a hydraulic bucket on here, and it would be powered by that. So the original little block-off plate that this tractor came with, basically is just a plate that goes on there with an open oval cut in it that connects these two passages. So we either have to put this thing back on and come up with a neater way of connecting the two passages together, or we need to make a new cover for this. I'll have to figure out what is the best course of action. That's not going to take me 1,000 years to do. I could probably simply just gouge out this in between here, but then I've got no way of sealing it. I could drill through on an angle to connect them together, but once you do stuff like that, then this piece is destroyed forever, right? Perfect. You can see what we did here. I just put these fittings back in on a little different angle than they were, and I found a little hose that goes around this and doesn't touch the lift arm. It doesn't touch anything, so that allows the fluid to go from this port to this port, and in turn into the hydraulic valving that lifts our hitch up and down. And we have not messed with its integrity. So if in future some other hydraulic accessory like a loader or a remote valve is to be added to this, it can be easily done. Okay, we're all set. I gotta put that up. I don't have enough hands. it'll go up. It's this thing here has to be lined up with this pin. So when we go like that, look at that, there we go. Pitch works. And there's the hydraulic oil right on the full mark. So we're good there. What a mess we made before I made, pardon me, before I figured that out. Hydraulic oil and automatic transmission fluid are just two things that every time I get near either one of them, it ends up a big mess. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. What we're going to do now is get the belly of this thing dumped. So there's three plugs. There's one up near the front here, one in the middle, and one at the back. So we're going to take the one at the back out first because it's the easiest one to reach. And we'll get the belly oil drained. So you can see the milkshake. She's full of water, but that's okay. We'll get it emptied out, and I'll just let it sit here with all the plugs out of it, and all this crap will slowly run out. I'm curious to see how much we actually get out of it. Should be 5 gallons in there. Remember the diesel, we got 12 gallons out of it. We'll see what we get out of this one. Man, that's gross. Thankfully, there was only the regulation 5 gallons of it seems. So now we're going to pull the oil pan plug out and see what comes out of there. That filter looks like it's been on there a while. We got a new one of those. Let's see here. Got a big drain plug in it. Here we go. Here we go. Not too bad. I think there's a tiny little bit of water that came out first, but it wasn't antifreeze, it was just water. That's some really runny looking crap. I think it's 10W30 or 530 or something. We'll put some 1540 diesel oil in it. There's our new oil filter on. Now we'll stick the drain plug back in and we'll fill her up with some Motomaster 15W40 diesel oil. I've got all the plugs back in the belly. I'm going to start filling up. It is a pain in the neck filling these things up because they give you this great big hole, but there's a gear or something right there. So you have to use this stupid little transmission funnel to fill it up. And, well, you can guess it takes a while. I got the engine oil all done. And now we're draining the coolant out of it. You can see there in the bucket. I don't know if the camera picks it up, but it's gross, rusty looking kind of stuff. So it's kind of windy, so I just got it running out of there slow. It'll come out eventually. So anyway, let's get this stuff in. There we are. That's good engineering. I put the entire 5-gallon bucket in, and it just fills it. Perfect. So put the fill plug or the level plug back in and tighten that up. And that's another job done. I think the antifreeze is almost finished coming out of the radiator. So we'll close that up and pull the plug out of the block. I thought the antifreeze was done, but it's still going. So while we wait, we're going to clean out. These are the breather filters for the hydraulic pump and the differential. The other one's down over there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to... You used to be able to buy new ones of these. You can't anymore. So we're just going to soak them in the solvent tank and then blow them out good with compressed air. So you can see here the diff breather is all come apart. It's done. We're going to have to come up with some kind of plan for that. So here's how I fixed this. I cleaned up the lid. I cleaned up the bolt. And then I used just a piece of 3/8 steel line, and I made a sleeve. I measured it. It needs to be about 7/8 of an inch to give this just, 30 or 40 thousandths of clearance to the casting so air can get in and out. And then I got a Brillo pad here and cut 3 discs. Turns out I needed 4 discs to make it work nicely. So I made a 4th disc. We'll go stick it together now and see how it looks. That's good. That'll do the job. You can see there's just a little clearance there so air can move in and out. And, yeah, I'm happy with that. Now we'll blow out the one for the hydraulic reservoir and get that back together. Now let's see what we get out of the block. Sometimes these ones don't want to drain because they're all plugged up with crap. And this looks to be one of those times. Sometimes you can blow a little air up them and that'll get them flowing. We'll try that. Would you just look at the grossness coming out of there. Ew. Yuck. Here's our next obstacle. I went to put coolant in this thing, and the first thing I noticed is the radiator cap is destroyed. So I ordered a new one. These things use a 7-pound radiator cap, so I ordered a lever vent one, a Stant lever vent 7-pounder on Amazon. It'll be here tomorrow. Other thing I noticed is the overflow tube is busted right off of this thing, so I'm going to try. I don't want to take this all apart and try and solder one on. So we're going to try and get a little piece of hose attached to this somehow and get it fed down there. It might work, it might not, but it's worth a try. It's not that big a deal if we can't. Well, it's not my best work, but it's in there. It's not really kinked. It might leak a little bit, but it'll stop the overflow from running all down the top of the rad. If it overheats, it'll probably blow that right out, but well, let's hope it doesn't overheat. Here's something that's a little maddening. They've put a rain cap on it, but you can see here, they've put it front to back. And when the rain cap goes up like that, it directs all the crud that comes out the stack right back in your face. I got a big hunk of carbon right between the eyes when I moved it this morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and loosen this screw and see if we can turn this thing 90 degrees. Now we can service up the air cleaner cup, fill it with fresh oil, and put the intake hose back on. This has got some kind of glob of guck stuck in the bottom of it. Yuck. And once we got it cleaned out, we just fill it up with solvent and let it sit here for a few minutes and make sure it doesn't leak, because many times these things will have a little pinhole in them that you got to braze up. But this one's looking okay so far. Now, before we start putting this thing back together, we've got to get all these pins cleaned up. I just take like a tiny skim cut off them, just to it gets the crap off them and gives them a kind of a nice finish, so we can grease them up and stick them in there, and there's actually a chance they might come out next time. All right, let's get this rocker put back together and adjusted. So the first thing we got to do is get our spring on. You know what I'm going to do before that is just get some of this stuff on this thread here. All right, there we go. That'll help it a lot. Now we'll slide the rocker spring on, or the draft control spring. If we were working on a Ferguson, that's what we'd call it, right? I'm going to put a little more anti-seize in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to screw this thing in, and we want to just take up the play. I'll see you when I'm done. Okay, we're getting close now. You can see there's still a little end play there. We got to get rid of that. See where we're at there. Still a little bit. That's no good. Gotta take it out. Still a little bit there. Now we're just going to go half a turn at a time. There it is, right there. So we've just taken the play out, right? That's right where we want it. And it doesn't matter if this is up or down where the cinch bolt goes. In this case, it's up. Now, we're going to get the rocker on. We've got our shaft. We cleaned it up in the lathe. It should go on. Yeah, see how it goes in now? So we'll get some anti-seize here in its bore. After all that banging and smashing and torching and everything, get it out. That's how it's actually supposed to fit. Okay, so now this guy goes on here like this. Might have to give it a little tap. Get the rest of the way through, but there we go. And now we'll put the little snap rings on it, and then we'll work on that pin. Now we're going to put this guy in, and you can see there it's got that groove in it where the cinch bolt passes through. That's what holds the pin. And we're going to put it with the threaded end out because that's where that little piece of linkage hooks up to. I'll show you that in a sec. So same thing, we're going to slather this bore up with anti-seize. Slather our pin with anti-seize. I don't know if I'd ever have to take this thing apart again, but if I do, it's nice if it actually comes apart, isn't it? Hang on. Yeah. There we go. Okay, now we got to, we'll just hold our little bolt here. And that's how we'll know we got this thing in far enough when the bolt slides down into the groove there. There we go. Okay, so that's good. Now, same thing. Some anti-seize on the bolt, and we'll tighten it up. Just like that. Now you see this. See how these two bolts here are jammed against the seat frame. That is on these tractors how you defeat draft control. So if you wanted to go out plowing and you wanted your draft control to work, you loosen these jam nuts and screw these bolts in so there's clearance here, and you can use this, I believe, to set the sensitivity of the draft control, or how much it reacts is maybe a better description of it. So right now with those stuck against there, the rocker can't go like this, right? And so we have overridden draft control. This has what they call, this is the 550. This has the dual sensing hydraulics. So draft control and position control are simply controlled by this. On the Super 55s, you had just like an 8N, a draft control and position control lever back here. This guy doesn't have that. Last thing we do is get our little turnbuckle installed here. This is the final adjustment we'll do on the 3-point hitch, but we can't do that until it's all back together and up and running, and it's just a simple adjustment there. Now, I guess, oh, and the other thing I wanted to show you is this pin and everything has been fabricated by somebody. Normally it would have, the pin would come right to here and just have a smaller diameter with a circlip on the outside of it here. This one, they've drilled and tapped it and used a bolt. It doesn't really matter. It's there, right? I swiped this stuff from the other one because I want the right parts for it. Now I'll go ahead and put the 3-point linkage, get all that stuff put back on. I'll be back in a minute. Now we need to adjust the PTO clutch. You see that there? To release it, you should have to put a little strain on it. And this one, you don't have to. It's just barely, it's flopping around. that means it's not getting a lot of pressure on the pressure plate when it's engaged. I can show you there. That's the PTO engaged, right? So that's disengaged. You should have to like pull this thing to get that snapped onto there. So I'll show you what you do. Under here, we're under the tractor, and you remove that plate from here. And what you do, you got to push this little pin in here. That's the lock pin. Oh man, this thing won't focus. There we go. That's better. So that's the lock pin. See, I'll have to put the camera down because I need 2 hands to do it. But you push that lock pin down. You push the lock pin in, and then you turn this relative to that. And that's how you adjust up the clutch. I'm not quite sure which way to turn it. It'll be an experiment, but I'll be back when we're done. I'll let you know what I found out. Okay, so it helps if you see here, you put a needle nose vice grip on that little finger there. That keeps the damn thing from turning when you're trying to adjust it. And you turn it this way, clockwise, looking at it. And we're getting there. I've turned it maybe 1 full turn now and gotten some of the slop out of the handle, but we've got to go probably another full turn before it's working properly. So we just wind it up a little bit. You see there, that's when this is against that stopper, the PTO clutch is off. And you should be able to turn it with your hand. There's a little bit of drag on there. And then, like that, PTO is on. And there, that's it. Doesn't move. That's good. That's right how we want it. And then you turn. There you go. That's how you turn it off. Good. So we can put that little plate back on the bottom, and that's that done. So after we adjusted the PTO clutch, it keeps spinning when you turn the PTO off. And that's a good indication that the clutch plates are oiled up. I guess we get to make another video. We're going to split this baby, and we'll have a look at that clutch and see what we got to do. Now we'll get the fenders back on this thing and see if we can come up with some solution to get some lights mounted on it, because I'm going to steal the light brackets off of it. I need them. I need them for the other one. All the best stuff, like I said, is going on the other one, and this one is just going to get patched together with whatever stuff we have. Wonder if we can straighten this up a bit. It's got it on both sides. That to me looks like somebody's been pushing this thing with a loader, you know. Trying to push it on the backs of the fenders with the loader bucket. That's my guess what happened to it. But we'll get the hammers and dollies out and see if we can clean it up a little bit. So we're starting with the lights. We got the ones on this side. Somewhere down the line, if I find a small switch, I'll put a switch in the plow light here so it doesn't, right now it just comes on with the headlights, right? I can't hook the light on the other side up yet because I went to start tidying this up and realized I'm out of 1/4 and 3/8 split loom. So I got to get some of that, and then I'll get this side cleaned up, and then we'll see what wire we've got left to run over to the other side. I may have to make it a little bit longer because the lights aren't exactly where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be here at the front of the fender, but we don't have the brackets anymore, so I moved them up to here. It just seemed to be a little bit better idea. Now I got to try and fix this, or at least make it a little better. Here's what it should look like. This was done by the donkeys at the auction house with a tow strap, trying to get this thing pulled up out of wherever it was. They put a strap around the axle here, and it somehow got caught in that. Never, ever let anybody else tow your shit. This is, oh man, I see so much damage. Probably the same guys that were pushing it with the loader and wrecked the back fenders, right? Anyway, we're going to try and straighten this out a little bit. At least make it look a little bit better. It is what it is. Before we put the front wheels back on this thing, I got to go around and cut all this baling twine. This side, it's not too bad. It hasn't gotten, you can see if it gets up in there, it gets at the seals and can create some problems. This bearing is nice. That's good. This side, however, is not good. You can see there, it's got some end play in it. So we'll get the baling twine off, And then we'll pop the hubcap off and see if we can tighten up the bearing a bit. So the hub is nicely packed with grease. So hopefully we can just get this cotter pin out of here and tighten her up a bit. Let's see here. Oh yeah. There. Uh-oh. I think we got a clunky bearing in there. That's why they've got it loose. Dare we pull it off? All right, I could fix this. I found the problem. Watch this. Well, get the bearing back in there. You see this here? That's not a blob of grease. That's a bunch of weld. And when it comes around, it hits the knuckle there. So don't ask me why they've welded it. It may have cracked, or it could have even been a porosity there, right? So we'll just grind this down, and then we'll be all set. So there we go. It's all good now. In the end, I had to touch it with the grinder pretty much all the way around. I guess I could surmise that probably that inner bearing has got a little wear on it, which is allowing the hub to go in a little further than it might normally. But we've got all the play out of it, and it turns. It's fine. It's not going in the Indy 500. I swapped the grills. The one on the diesel was all bashed up. It's this one, and it was yellow. So I sprayed some white paint on it. It's not that minty white that it should be, but it looks a lot better than it did when it was yellow, I'll tell you that. Ah, she's starting to look pretty good now. It's even got a matching pair of Goodyear tires on the front. I found that this old Goodyear tire with the diamonds around it, well, I had one on the diesel 550 with the exact same tire. So I said, well, we might as well match them up. They're not the greatest, but at least they match. The home stretch on this 550 gasser seems to be a lot of work and taking quite a while. So I'm going to split it in half. We're going to end it here. I'll be back and we'll do the rest of it. I guess, yeah, that's the smartest thing to do. Otherwise, this thing would be almost an hour long, and that's no good. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll come back and see us again on the Claremont Classic Garage so you can see if we get this thing finished. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.